Divorce rates are now at the lowest levels in 40 years after peaking around 1980. Some say it's a result of the so-called Generation X. Many of them lived through the trauma of divorce as kids in the 70s or 80s and vowed to stay married when it was their turn. We heard from one couple from Boston on just how going through divorce in their childhood does motivate them to stick together today.
You know, the point that you remember is when your parents sit you down and tell you that they're no longer going to be together. For me, it was, I had to grow up quickly. I was the man of the house, if you will. Well, we met in 2002.
On the internet.
Met on the internet. We were early pioneers. We married in 2004, so we married 7 years.
Yeah. I need to brush my teeth. Can you do me a favor?
From what I recall, it was a difficult relationship between my mother and father when I was growing up. It was very tough on me, and it was tough on my sister as well. You know, Laura's experience was, I mean, it couldn't be further, you know, from mine.
We had conversations before we decided to get married about what marriage meant to us and whether that experience shaped any preliminary attitudes about what it means to make that decision. I mean, it's sort of, in retrospect, ridiculous because you don't really know until you're in it.
Okay, go again.
You know, it's mutual respect, fun, loyalty, good communication.
I think that Mitch is a really good listener, and he's a very natural, amazing dad.
It has a lot to do with the fact that we got married later.
I was 36, and Mitch was 38, 37.
You know, I figured a number of things out, you know, by the time I was in my 30s that prepared me for marriage and prepared me for fatherhood. I absolutely did not want to go through divorce. It was a very painful process for me, and I think that you really see that once you have kids.
We talk about how our relationship and the way we communicate with each other affects them.
I think Laura and I both are very focused on making our home incredibly comfortable, and we spend a lot of time with them. We share responsibilities.
It gives me a lot of comfort for my kids to feel like it's just, home is a really safe environment where they can just be a kid and not have to think about anything complicated like relationships.
Joining us with more, psychologist and early show contributor, Dr. Jennifer Hartstein. Nice to have you back with us this morning.
Nice to be here.
So why is it that Gen Xers are so determined to avoid divorce? Is it because of that pain many of them felt as kids?
Absolutely. It's their worst nightmare come true if they have to get divorced and follow along in that pattern. They felt the pain of it as children. They didn't understand it. Their parents had to work harder, be more involved, be less involved with them. So they don't want to have that repeated in their own lives.
So this, though, is a total 180. So really, this is the opposite end of the spectrum, saying, well, no matter what, we're going to stay together. Is that the best way to deal with it?
Not necessarily. As she said in the piece, you just don't know. You make this pact that you're never going to get divorced. But how do you know that you can actually follow through on that? So you want to try and make that commitment. I think everybody goes into marriage with that being their commitment.
Sure.
So you want to keep that as your focal point and really work to get through those struggles, talk about the conflicts, work together to make them better. And if you can't, then you have to weigh out your options. What really is the best choice for us now?
So we talk about this trend that we're seeing, and that a lot of it is coming from what a lot of the people who are now adults experience as children. So if they're staying together, in some cases, no matter what, how does that affect kids versus divorce?
Right. Well, it's a catch-22. The kids pick up on the animosity that happens in their families. They do pick up on that acrimony that can be there. And it's important for parents to try and still continue to be effective co-parents on the same page and to work out their problems away from their kids. And if they can do that, then great, everybody wins. But if they can't, and it starts to seep into every other aspect of things, then you have to really start to think what's in the best interest of everybody in this family, not just me, not just my spouse, but also our kids too.
These are things you study, obviously, as a psychologist. You study these divorce trends and why people got divorced when they did in the 70s and the 80s. Were they giving up, or did this really seem like the best option and the only option for a lot of people?
I think it was a very different time. One of the things that we notice in talking about these statistics is that today, 77% of the people being married make it to their 10-year anniversary. That didn't always happen then. And they didn't have the options and the outlets and the opportunities to really get the help that they needed. They also got married a lot younger. In the 50s, people were getting married, men were 23, women were 20. And now, in 2009, they found that men were 28, women were 26. I think that's different too. They got married younger, they grew up together. you might grow to not like that person after a little while. Whereas if you're more settled in who you are, you might be able to stay with them longer.
There's not a checklist that you can go through as a couple and say, okay, we have 7 out of 10 we should get divorced or we should stay together.
Right.
But there are definitely lessons that we can take from both examples, both the boomers and the Gen Xers. What are they?
Right. Well, I think with the boomers, because of the time, they did a lot more working. They were out of the home. There was the latchkey kids. Kids spent a lot more time raising themselves. Parents were a little bit more hands-off. Then today you have the Gen Xers who are totally helicopter involved, more neurotic. We need to take that pendulum and bring it back to the middle and allow our kids to fall down, hurt themselves, figure out how to pick themselves up, and be there to comfort them once they do. And if we find that balance, I think everybody will be a little bit happier, much more settled, and there'll be a lot less pressure all around.
Great advice. Always good to have you here, Jen. Thanks.
Thanks, Erica.